1. Typical duties of welding inspectors. 1.1 General welding inspectors are employed to assist with the quality control, QC, activities necessary to ensure that welded items meet specified requirements and are fit for their application. For employers to have confidence in their work, welding inspectors need to understand/interpret the various QC procedures and also have a sound knowledge of welding technology. Visual inspection is one of the non-destructive examination, NDE, disciplines and for some applications may be the only form. For more demanding service conditions, visual inspection is usually followed by one or more of the other non-destructive testing, NDT, techniques, surface crack detection and volumetric inspection of butt welds. Application standards/codes usually specify, or refer to other standards, that give the acceptance criteria for weld inspection and may be very specific about the particular techniques to be used for surface crack detection and volumetric inspection. They do not usually give any guidance about basic requirements for visual inspection. Guidance and basic requirements for visual inspection are given by ISO 17637, Non-Destructive Examination of Fusion Welds, Visual Examination, 1.1.1 1.1.2 Basic Requirements for Visual Inspection, to ISO 17637, ISO 17637 provides the following, requirements for welding inspection personnel. Recommendations about conditions suitable for visual examination. Advice on the use of gauges/inspection aids that may be needed/helpful for inspection. Guidance about information that may need to be in the inspection records. Guidance about when inspection may be required during fabrication. A summary of each of these topics is given in the following sections. Welding inspection personnel before starting work on a particular contract. ISO 17637 states that welding inspectors should be familiar with relevant standards, rules, and specifications for the fabrication work to be undertaken. Be informed about the welding procedure, to be used. Have good vision in accordance with N 473 and checked every 12 months. The ISO 17637 does not give or make any recommendation about a formal qualification for visual inspection of welds. However, it has become industry practice for inspectors to have practical experience of welding inspection together with a recognized qualification in welding inspection such as a CSWIP qualification. 1.1.3 Conditions for visual inspection. Illumination. ISO 17637 states that the minimum illumination shall be 350 lux but recommends a minimum of 500 lux, normal shop or office lighting. Access to the surface for direct inspection should enable the eye to be, within 600 mm of the surface being inspected, in a position to give a viewing angle of not less than 30 degrees. 600 mm, maximum, 30 degrees, MIN, Figure 1.1. Access for visual inspection. 1.1.4 Aids to visual inspection. Where access for direct visual inspection is restricted, a mirrored buroscope or a fiber optic viewing system may be used, usually by agreement between the contracting parties. It may also be necessary to provide auxiliary lighting to give suitable contrast and relief effect between surface imperfections and the background. Other items of equipment that may be appropriate to facilitate visual examination are welding gauges, for checking bevel angles and weld profile, fillet sizing, measuring undercut depth. Dedicated weld gap gauges and linear misalignment, high-low, gauges. Straight edges and measuring tapes. Magnifying lens, if a magnification lens is used it should be x2 to x5. ISO 17637 shows a range of welding gauges together with details of what they can be used for and the precision of the measurements. The 1.1.5 1.1.6 stages when inspection may be required. ISO 17637 states that examination is normally performed on welds in the iswelded condition. This means that visual inspection of the finished weld is a minimum requirement. However, ISO 17637 says that the extent of examination and the stages when inspection activity is required should be specified by the application standard or by agreement between client and fabricator. For fabricated items that must have high integrity, such as pressure vessels and piping or large structures, inspection activity will usually be required throughout the fabrication process, before welding, during welding, after welding. Inspection activities at each of these stages of fabrication can be considered the duties of the welding inspector, and typical inspection checks that may be required are described in the following section. Typical duties of a welding inspector. The relevant standards, rules, and specifications that a welding inspector should be familiar with at the start of a new contract are all the documents he will need to refer to during the fabrication sequence in order to make judgments about particular details. Typical documents that may need to be referred to are the application standard, or code for visual acceptance criteria, although most of the requirements for the fabricated item should be specified by national standards, client standards, or various QC procedures. Some features are not easy to define precisely, and the requirement may be given as to good workmanship standard. Quality plans or inspection checklists, for the type and extent of inspection. Drawing, for assembly/fit-up details and dimensional requirements. QC procedures, company QC/QA procedures such as those for document control, material handling, electrode storage and issue, welding procedure specifications, etc. Examples of requirements difficult to define precisely are some shape tolerances, distortion, surface damage, or the amount of weld spatter. Good workmanship is the standard that a competent worker should be able to achieve without difficulty when using the correct tools in a particular working environment. In practice, the application of the fabricated item will be the main factor that influences what is judged to be good workmanship, or the relevant client specification will determine what the acceptable level of workmanship is. Reference samples are sometimes needed to give guidance about the acceptance standard for details such as weld surface finish and toe blend, weld root profile and finish required for welds that need to be dressed by grinding or finishing. A welding inspector should also ensure that any inspection aids that will be needed are in good condition, calibrated as appropriate / as specified by QC procedures. Safety consciousness is a duty of all employees, and a welding inspector should be aware of all safety regulations for the workplace. Ensure that safety equipment that will be needed is available and in suitable condition. Duties before welding. Check material WPSs, welding equipment, weld preparations, welder qualifications, welding consumables, joint fit, UPS, weld faces, preheat, if required, action in accordance with drawing/WPS. Identified and can be traced to a test certificate. In suitable condition, free from damage and contamination. Approved and available to welders and inspectors. In suitable condition and calibrated as appropriate. In accordance with WPS and/or drawings. Identification of welders qualified for each WPS to be used. All welder qualification certificates are valid, in date. Those to be used are as specified by the WPSs, are stored/controlled as specified by the QC procedure. In accordance with WPS/drawings, tack welds are to good workmanship standard and to code/WPS. Free from defects, contamination, and damage. Minimum temperature is in accordance with WPS. TD duties during welding. Check site/field welding, welding process, preheat, if required, inter-pass temperature, welding consumables, welding parameters, root run, gouging/grinding, inter-run, cleaning, welder action. Ensure weather conditions are suitable/comply with code, conditions will not affect welding. In accordance with WPS. Minimum temperature is being maintained in accordance with WPS. Maximum temperature is in accordance with WPS. In accordance with WPS and being controlled as procedure. Current, volts, travel speed are in accordance with WPS. Visually acceptable to code before filling the joint, for single-sided welds. By an approved method and to good workmanship standard. To good workmanship standard. on the approval register / qualified for the WPS being used. Duties after welding check action weld identification. Each weld is marked with the welder's identification and is identified in accordance with drawing / weld map. Weld appearance ensure welds are suitable for all NDT, profile, cleanness, etc. Visually inspect welds and sentence in accordance with code. Dimensional survey check dimensions are in accordance with drawing / code. Drawings ensure any modifications are included on as-built drawings. NDT ensure all NDT is complete and reports are available for records. Repairs monitor in accordance with the procedure. PWHT, if required, monitor for compliance with procedure, check chart record. Pressure / load test, if required, ensure test equipment is calibrated. Monitor test to ensure compliance with procedure / code. Ensure reports / records are available. Documentation records ensure all reports / records are completed and collated as required. 1.1.7 Examination records. The requirement for examination records / inspection reports varies according to the contract and type of fabrication, and there is frequently no requirement for a formal record. When an inspection record is required, it may be necessary to show that items have been checked at the specified stages and have satisfied the acceptance criteria. The form of this record will vary, possibly a signature against an activity on an inspection checklist or quality plan, or it may be an individual inspection report for each item. For individual inspection reports, ISO 17637 lists typical details for inclusion such as, name of manufacturer / fabricator. Identification of item examined. Material type and thickness. Type of joint. Welding process. Acceptance standards / criteria. Locations and types of all imperfections not acceptable. When specified, it may be necessary to include an accurate sketch or photograph. Name of examiner / inspector and date of examination.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates.